Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Throat Punch Mondays. I am Leah. This is Lynn, and we have a very special guest with us today, Karina. Can't wait to get into her story, and she is going to bring the fire with transitioning out of the military. So I'm super excited about that. I think it's something that is not talked about enough. I've got people trying to sneak in the bedroom in here while I'm recording, so you're probably hearing some doors opening there. Um, so thank you again for joining us. We're missing Letha tonight and hope everything is well with her. But Lynn, I am super excited about this because I feel like it comes up all the time. And it's something that a lot of people just don't discuss. And that is the transition from the military to civilian world and how you find success in that. But first, before we get into it, that Lynn has a shout out for us. So Lynn, who are we shouting out today?
Okay, so I don't have a shout out to a particular person, but shout out to AFES and NBC because they're going to be airing the Summer Olympics for free for us military and veterans. So if you are able to shop at AFES or any exchange, you'll be able to stream everything that's going on with the Olympic sports. So there's my shout out.
Excellent. Go USA.
Yes.
So, all right. So I feel like we never know as service members what to fully expect in the civilian world, whether you're in for a couple of years or you're a lifer in the military, and you can only prepare so much because you're not sure what to expect. And sometimes you get a job in the military thinking that it's going to prepare you for the civilian world. And I know, especially in the Army, that doesn't quite pan out typically the way that you want to, especially as enlisted soldiers. But let's talk about what we do know now versus what we knew then. And, for me, like I was lost. I don't know about you gals, but I was really lost because all I knew was I just wanted out. I wanted out. And the thing was, is I loved my job in the Army, and I ended up having 3 jobs in the Army as a truck driver, which I didn't want to do in the civilian world. And then I went into intelligence fields and went counterintelligence. And I loved that job. I mean, it was fun. There were so many different facets that I can do. And that is something that I could have transitioned into as a civilian. But in order for me to transition, I was going to have to do the same thing as far as being gone all the time, being deployed all the time, working really long hours. And that's not what I wanted. Like for me, even though I loved the career, I wanted to be home with my kids. And it was like, well, now what in the world? So I went through a time, I got my real estate license. I did that for several years, ended up hating it, did not care for it. And then ultimately, but I love the entrepreneur aspect. So, I know Lynn and I, we've talked about before how vastly different our military experiences were. But for me, I just wanted complete freedom from the military lifestyle, but not just that, but I was rebelling against, I didn't want people to tell me what to wear. I didn't want people to tell me when to be at work or how long I had to be there, or if I could take vacation or when I could take vacation, or, check out my car. I just wanted complete freedom from that. And so I found entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship is not easy, especially when you go from basically, being told what to do all the time to being like, well, now you have complete freedom. And so there was such a big I can do anything that I want. So I had to go through a lot of growth, personal development, and finding my own discipline without being told to find the path and really get into the groove. So it took a little while. And I know there are some people that get out of the military, start entrepreneurship immediately, and they're phenomenal. But I think it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's because I have ADD or because I was such a rebel.
Trying to get out to the civilian world, because when you're in the military, you're so used to people telling you what to do, where to go, what time to wake up, what you're going to eat. Like everything is laid out for you in a plan. Like everything is planned out from you from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, if you get to go to sleep. So
Oh,
and then it's a huge transition. Then for me, when I was going to TAPS class, the transition class, it was only a week long. So it's definitely not enough time to unprogram your military mind and reprogram your mind into, okay, I got to get into the civilian mindset and translate what I did in the Navy, which was air interceptor control, telling pilots who to bomb, where to go, what to shoot, and like strike missions and whatever. How do I translate that to a civilian world? You know, when I was in OIF and also OEF, like it was all mission related, you know.
mhm.
But they teach you that in TAPS class, but it's only a week long, and then they give you some books, and then that's it, you know. And there's not really any real guidance, only because most people in the military are in the military. Like you're not going to get guidance from your senior leadership because they haven't transitioned. They are still there. So
Yep.
that is a huge deal, especially, you know, for anybody who's getting out. So I knew I wanted to get out as well. I didn't know what to do. It was scary. And but here I am now, you know, I'm working for Department of Homeland Security. It took me a long time to get here. Um, but I wanted to go over some statistics with you guys real quick about women veterans and employment. So for all of us, anybody who's been to Desert Storm, OIF, OEF, OND, and whatever new operations there is, this 20 plus year war is still the Gulf War. And so out of all the Gulf War veterans, 47% women are women, and 39% are men are under the age of 35. And in many cases, warriors felt unprepared or unwilling to transition, leaving some with a negative impression of their military service or reluctant to access trust to the Department of Veteran Affairs, right? So, like you said, Leah, you didn't want anything to do with the government structure or anything like that, right? The institution.
Mhm.
It said women warriors universally agreed that preparation for civilian careers must begin sooner and cover more comprehensive topics than currently offered by DoD and the VA. The TAP sessions women found most productive were offering resume training and practice interview. So yeah, having to translate
Mm.
your military service into civilian sector and into your resume is definitely a whole training in itself.
Right.
Let's see. And out of all of the unemployment rates of people who do claim unemployment or claim to be in the workforce, about 5.9% of that are women veterans. So, and then I know it's about the same number for men veterans as well. But again, those are like the unemployment rates does not take into effect that people who have dropped out of the workforce. So that number could actually even be higher.
Mhm. And I wanted to say something really quick. You mentioned the TAP stuff, and I think it's all the same military wide now, all called the same thing, but we call it ACAPing.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's required by the military, right?
Right.
Well, that was denied to me. I was not allowed to take those classes.
Oh.
So I don't
Was
know
it
how
because
many.
you were deployed or because they just were
Oh
just
no, ma'am. No. So, you know, they book up quickly. So I got my spot 4 months out from when I needed to take it. It was on my calendar at work, like our shared calendar. I had it on the big calendar, on the Google calendar, and I reminded them like every couple weeks, like, hey, on such and such week, I have ACAP, I have ACAP, and for the last 2 weeks leading up to it, I reminded them every day. I made sure that all of the soldiers that I was responsible for, like all of the tasks, everything were taken care of, and that everybody knew exactly what to do in my absence. And I told my platoon sergeant every day, like, hey, I've got ACAP on these days. I've got ACAP on these days. He's like, okay, 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 okay. So then Friday, reminded him again. Monday, I've got ACAP starting that week. He's like, okay. So Monday morning, I was like, hey, Sergeant, just want to remind you again, I've got ACAP this week. And he said, when are you done? And I said, well, I'll be back like Thursday or whenever it was, Thursday, Friday. And he's like, that's not okay. That's not the answer. When will you be back today? And I said, Sergeant, it's a full day for however many days it was. And he's like, you can have half a day. And I'm like, that's not the way this works.
It sounds like an
And
IG complaint to
so
me.
he called me and was like, what is your problem? I was like, sorry, I've spent 13 years in the military. This is required to have before you leave. Like I have earned my spot in this class and it's been on the calendar for 4 months. And he's like, well, you need to be here at 09. So then I had to report to him and my first sergeant at 09. My first sergeant was a female. And we told her what the issue was. And she's like, well, Sergeant Day, can you just reschedule it? I said, no, I can't. Because this was 4 months. I had the schedule for 4 months. And she's like, well, I'm sorry. So I didn't get it.
That is
So
terrible.
I'm sure that I'm not the only one.
Right.
And I know that a lot of those classes are kind of like pointless and stuff, but just the fact that I was denied, and that's something that's like mandatory by the military.
And
I mean, that's one of the things that like sickened me, because I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's like a huge transition that you should have been afforded to you.
Yeah.
Especially getting out. Like I felt like it was mandatory. So for us, it was we had temporary assigned duty or temporary orders for that. So our chain of command could not say anything about it.
Yeah. I didn't think that, like, you're supposed to be protected and, be able to go, but that wasn't the case. But hopefully that's not happening to anybody else.
It probably is still. You never know. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think it's good to get it out there because there's no telling. And if anybody is listening to this and doesn't know your rights, like, make sure that you're getting those classes and demanding, I mean, be respectful, but demanding the things that are owed to you for giving your service and potentially your life. I mean, we put our life on line every single day. So make sure that you know your rights for sure. That's one thing that we have going on today. So, I mean, that being said, let's introduce Karina because she's going to school us all on this. So Karina is an Army veteran. She's found success in working with Google and being part of the initiative Google Vets. She helps other vets get the resources and find jobs that fit their needs. Karina, welcome. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been very excited about this, so thank you.
Yes, we're excited to have you. So please tell us about yourself first, like who you are, what you did in the military, what you do now.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an Army veteran, as you stated before. I joined in 2010 as an 88 hotel, so cargo specialist in Fort Hood, Texas, where I was the entire time for the 3 years that I was in the military. So I transitioned out in 2013, which initially wasn't the plan. I wanted to transition to officer, which the program of which I was already part of, but I got injured, had to transition out. And at the moment, I just really wanted to come back home to New York City, where I've always lived, hence some of the noise in the background. So apologies for that. So now that I was back home, I started to explore different avenues. So going to grad school or trying to join the workforce right away or doing both. And it all has led me to this point where I'm currently contracting with Google as a technical program manager. And that is a very broad title. So specifically, yeah.
All we heard was Google.
Right.
Yeah.
Google,
kind of a big deal. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing company. I have an amazing team, brilliant people, extremely supportive. The Google VetNet ERG, so Employee Resource Group, it's amazing at trying to not only provide support internally for veteran service members or spouse of service members that are currently working with Google, but also leading initiatives to help veterans in general outside of Google. But back to the technical program manager part, essentially I work with a complex product and help streamline processes. So auditing what's in place, working cross-functionally to understand what the needs are, where the current standings are, and then work on a path forward to create a single source of truth, if you will, for internal groups.
So I'm not Army. So tell me about how your job in the Army is the same or different from your job now. And how did you end up thinking or wanting to go down that path that you are today?
Right, great question. So my job right now has nothing to do with what I was doing in the Army. While in the Army as a cargo specialist, I honestly wasn't very fond of my MOS. And the reason why I ended up with that MOS, which actually might be a learning opportunity for everyone out there. I don't know if any other female soldiers have experienced this. So I was extremely eager to join the military. It's something that I look forward to since I was very young. And so the recruiting station that I went to, the sergeant that was working with me, he kept hitting on me. And so I kept rejecting him. And as a result, I ended up with a very unappealing list of MOSs that I could take part in. And 88 Hotel was the one. Cargo specialist, not something I wanted to do. Quite frankly, I researched online for a way to get out of MEPS before going to basic training and instead work with another sergeant in some other recruiting station. And I did give him the letter, but ultimately, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to the Army. So I ended up choosing an MOS at MEPS. It was a whole experience. But to answer your question,
that is ridiculous that they
so
limited your selections because you are a female who didn't accept that his advances.
Right.
Which he could have gotten in major trouble for if you'd reported him. But of course you didn't know that.
You don't know. Yeah, you're a civilian. You don't know. You're just barely joining.
Right.
That makes me so mad. But I'm not at all surprised.
Now, unfortunately, I'm not surprised. Now looking back, knowing what I know, I'm not surprised at all. But as a very young female from a very poor background, I saw it as a huge opportunity. And I thought these people that are older and have been in the military for so long and have what you see as an impressive background,
right?
You think they have all the power and there's nothing you can do about any of that, but try to walk around it as you try to get what you were there for in the first place.
I'm gonna get my brain is going down a rabbit hole. I'm like,
yeah.
I was gonna ask, I was like, ooh, I bet you have some really interesting stories about Fort Hood. But let's stay on topic today. So so can you explain? I'm not tech savvy. I know how to Google. But when you tell me what you're doing with Google Vets Initiative, what does that mean? What do you do?
What does that mean? What do I do? And I'm sorry, I never addressed your question. It was a mixture of schooling and companies taking a chance on me that led me to this position from cargo specialist. It was a very windy road, and now here I am. But in terms of what I do, the technical aspect of program management is essentially project management times 5. And with the technical expectation there is that you can understand and speak with engineering teams, as well as non-technical business stakeholders. And so basic things like basic coding languages or cloud computing, and those are things that I know about. And so that's what I use at my job to help translate technical problems into business problems and get the teams kind of translating between them to solve whatever needs to be solved and move projects forward. And as far as VetNet, Google VetNet, they're like a lot of other amazing ERG, employee resource groups within Google. They just happen to be the military one. And so it's essentially a 20% project, if you will, where I volunteer my time. Of course, I love being part of it, not only because it helps us professionally, you get mentors, any questions you have, you send one email to that alias and you have a lot of support, but it's a great opportunity to learn about initiatives outside of Google that you can take part of which my favorite is a very recent one, so VetNet Career Week, and is a major event that happens once a year. And during those 4 days, you speak with different individuals that are in your field of interest. You can be a service member, military spouse, veteran, everyone is definitely welcome. And so the idea is that you will get some exposure to your options, not only applying to Google, but whatever field you want to go after your time in the military, how you can start to kind of explore the different areas where you fit in, different programs available to you. You would get fire chats with CEOs like Johnson & Johnson CEO, the Google CEO, among many others. Tons of questions for them,
Wow.
but your questions might get exposed and answered there.
Those are big 500 Fortune companies.
Yeah. So you have Microsoft, IBM, a lot of companies, and it doesn't have to be within things that are similar to Google. So you have EA Games, just different fields. It's a great time to get a bit of exposure into what's on the civilian side and see that you actually have resources and actual people that are more than happy to help you. And so during that time, two of the initiatives that I took part of specifically, one was the outreach externally. So reaching out on LinkedIn to companies, to nonprofits, to different, everyone that I could think of, to ensure that the word gets out to all of these individuals that can be helped with this initiative. And so the social media strategy, I was part of that team. And as well as my absolute favorite was a resume review. So you volunteer to review someone's resume. Again, spouse, service member, veteran. And so they link you up and match you up based on the field they'd like to get into. And it's a great time not only to get resume review and recommendations, but it's an open conversation. It might be called a resume review, but you can just want to speak to this person for 30 minutes about the field they're in, how they got there, ask any questions. It's completely open. So that was my favorite part of that initiative.
I love that. So how do service members get connected? Like they just go to that website and they go from there?
Yeah, so during the social outreach that I mentioned, it's essentially a blurb about what this is and a link to register. It's completely free of charge and virtual, so you can just easily fill out a form. You get actually a schedule was open to everyone to see a schedule of what's going on because there are multiple sessions taking place. It's just 4 days, Monday through Thursdays. And so you choose the session that you're interested in. They have all the links and everything, and you can take part. It's just a matter of registering. This is also announced on the Google website and a whole bunch of places.
Okay, so if I was gonna Google it, what would I Google to register in to the Google training?
Great question. You would Google VetNet Career Week.
Okay.
VetNet Career.
Sorry.
All
Google VetNet Career Week. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's really awesome. I mean, it's incredible to be able to bring stuff like that to light because I feel like most of us have no idea about that. And
Yeah, I had no
how to work
clue.
even now. So I know Google's crazy. So good.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that's the thing. You don't know what you don't know. And I feel like transitioning out, there are a lot of areas of opportunities where this transitioning soldiers, service members can be exposed to a lot of these opportunities before getting out. I feel like even though I fortunately did get the chance to go through what I needed to transition out, I still walked out of there with no idea.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your transitioning experience and then how you like ultimately ended up where you are?
Yeah, most definitely. So I think a lot of service members, just like I was, are far away from home. And when you're transitioning out, I think it would make a big difference to have a bit of a support system. So I was a single soldier in the South for the first time in Texas, far away from home in New York City. And it was kind of up to me to solve what I wanted to do. As I mentioned before, this wasn't the plan. I wanted to go on to be an officer. And so it was completely out of left field. And transitioning out just seemed kind of very surreal for me because it's not something that I expected to be doing so soon. And I just went through the motions, but the things that I did go to, resume training, LinkedIn training, they were very superficial, in my opinion. Mind you, this was 2013, things might have improved a whole lot, but it was very superficial. The individuals that were giving these classes, I was very grateful. They were trying their best, but quite frankly, they weren't coming across as experts in the field or as giving advice that I couldn't just Google real quick and find online. And it was very contained, right? So if you wanted something within Texas, where I was stationed, I was transitioning out of within Fort Hood, Killeen, you might have had some resources and some connections that I could have connected with, but anything else, anywhere else, I feel like I was on my own. Same for in my situation, wanting to go from cargo specialist to a completely different field. I was completely on my own. And so it was a very lonely experience where I still felt quite lost, and like I didn't have anyone to go to. My sergeants, who to begin with, some were amazing, but there wasn't much support there. Unfortunately, it seems like what your experience as well, Leah, there wasn't much support there, not only because they hadn't transitioned out before, but because they really didn't care to kind of look into it and guide me, which is terrible because I was a junior soldier. It's not like I was leading anyone. I was an E4. And so, yeah, it was not a very positive experience. And I came back home feeling lost, not knowing what I was going to do, worried about how I was going to make an income and how I was going to translate all of that. Luckily, I did have family that I could move back with for the time being, but that's not the case for everyone. I was very lucky to have that. And so it was very underwhelming.
Yeah. Did you feel like, because I mean, I feel like unless you retire, they just kind of like throw you away. Like, oh, you're getting out? Like, you're not re-enlisting? Like, okay, bye. And they
you're just another number. Somebody's going to come in and take your place here soon. So they don't even care.
That's a great point. My last memory, the last time I filled out a formation was when our first sergeant, he didn't make an effort to really pronounce our name. So he went by last four of your SSN for accountability. And so the most
that's harder.
Yeah, but he had it there, and he couldn't mess up the numbers, I guess. So my last memory is a few days prior, the sergeant was telling me like, oh, so why don't you stay in? Which, mind you, I talk about the injury, but they never took it seriously because you got injured. Oh, you're the new Army. I was running 27 miles with that same injury. What's wrong with you? So not getting support I needed for my injury right away, or being let go to the hospital to get that that attention that I needed, led to having a permanent injury, which sucks, but it is what it is. So the same sergeant that should have known about my injury and I was getting out was essentially looking down on me and telling me like, why are you going to go out there? You don't have anything to do or anything to offer. You should have stayed in the military, and all of that, which I already was fuming about, but kept my mouth shut because I was almost getting out. And then that last morning, I just left. That was it. I didn't say bye to anyone. Nobody said anything to me. I had my paperwork. That was done, and that was that. It was yeah.
Kind of a similar situation.
Yeah, that's all mind games.
They didn't even give me my my last RCOM that you're supposed to get out. Like, thanks for being in the military. Did you get one, Karina?
Of course not. But at least I was in for what, 2010 to 2013, but 13 years, you said? That's insane.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I got one like, I don't know, a year later. It was mailed to me, which is weird because every time I left a command, and I served in 2 different ships and one land, we call it shore duty command. So I had 3 different commands, and all those commands did not give me an end of tour award. And then all of a sudden I didn't expect one, and I got one like a year later in the mail. So
well, so my husband and I served in the same unit. The last unit that we went to was a nightmare, but he got out about 7 months after I did, and he didn't get one either. But I was a civilian at that time, so I would go visit him every once in a while, and I'd be like, hey, you guys write up my RCOM yet? And they would just look at me. I'm like, waiting on my RCOM, one of those things that everybody gets. Never got it. But my husband never got one either, and he was never like, I don't know. He could like, I don't know. He's like told our superiors off before, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I love him. And then I would look at them like this, and they'd be like, Article 15, you're in trouble. And I'm like, oh no, that's terrible. It was crazy. But yeah, I'm so sorry that you had that experience, Karina. I mean, it makes me so sad that I'm not the only one that has experiences like that, because it's like so disgusting to me that, you can really give your all, your whole life to these organizations, and then just kind of feel like you're worthless in the end. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm here. What in the world am I going to do? Like, and I feel like when no matter how long you stay in the military, you have that where you just like, well, one day at a time, one day at a time. And so a lot of times we don't really think about our futures anyway, because we're just trying to get through today. And then regardless, like in your instance where you got injured, like same thing for me, where you're kind of like, well, that shifts plans a little bit. What am I going to do now? And then you don't have that guidance there. And then there's nobody outside of the military that really understands what you're going through, and there aren't a whole lot of resources. So it makes it really hard, like on every front. And it's no wonder we have so many female veteran homeless. I mean, there's a lot of homeless veterans, but especially females. So, I mean, how Karina, did you like find the path that you're on now? What did you do?
I think it started way before I transitioned. So I wasn't a favorite soldier, although I was always doing really well on everything because I was going to school full time to the A&M University as well. And so I don't know what it was. There was a negative connotation with, I wasn't absent. I was there because I needed to be. It's the Army, and I got 3 hours of sleep, normally 4 tops for a long time to finish undergrad by the time I was done with my enlistment period. But it just wasn't like looked up upon. So to answer your question, my journey started with trying really hard to map out what I wanted to do or thought I wanted to do at the time and work backwards. I thought I wanted to get a BBA in marketing so I could go into that field. So I went semester by semester, split up my classes, calculated everything, figured out, of course, I couldn't use 9/11 while I was still in, but there are, FAFSA, and you can use some resources within the military as well to help you pay for those courses. And so after finishing, I graduated and ran back home. And so here, I kid you not, I applied to over 100 jobs in 1 week, on average at least 60, no response, nothing, crickets. And part of what I discovered was that while there could definitely be more resources in general for veterans nationwide, in the South, there were definitely a lot more. Here, being a veteran in New York City, East Coast, I can only speak to my experience in the East Coast. It's a plus that you're a veteran, but nothing is really, you don't really stick out unless you have something else, academically or professionally. It didn't get me anywhere. So I decided to go to grad school before I planned to go initially in the timeline that I planned. So I went right after going back home in New York City for a degree that was interesting, but quite frankly wasn't the MBA that I was hoping for. Because of financial stability, I did get paid for going to school, and because I knew I needed something to make up for the time that I lost while my counterparts around my age were working full time. And so during grad school, I would go on a lot of internships. I was still very fascinated by technology. I love technology, problem solving. And so pushing through and knowing that I most likely wasn't going to be able to go in through the front door like a lot of people around me. So I need to find that window or the back door or any other way to get in there. So going to internships, trying to find veteran groups, not easy up here on the Northeast. And trying to do everything I could to kind of engage with people in the industry, find programs that were available for, boxes that I ticked in the sense of Hispanic female, LGBTQ plus, and any other help that I could get. And even then, after grad school, I ACP, one of the veteran organizations, they got me a mentor within Johnson & Johnson, and she was the head of comms for the US. And so I didn't get the mentor that I was hoping for guidance, but I did get a hell of a sponsor. I met with this lady like twice, and after that resulted in getting a job right out of grad school with J&J within their communications department. There I took on more of a technology role because I was dealing with their website, and so that led me to own more projects that revolve more around technology rather than straight up communications. And so within technical sphere, I then ended up, after graduating grad school and being there for a bit more, going to Amazon's Audible as a contractor. And once again, I was within operations and ended up being the face of business to engineering, because the little projects that were outside of what I was supposed to do, my main job, just became bigger because of how successful I was with front-end debugging, setting up customers on desktop and mobile, leading to other individuals that eventually I was leading there. And that led to a full-time offer. Unfortunately, I had another offer when my contract ended from Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Services. And there I joined as a product manager. I was there for quite some time. The team exploded, and so it went global. And so I was a product manager for APAC and EMEA and Latin America because I speak Spanish, and it got to be a bit too much. So I had to make the hard decision to move on and just take some time for myself. And while I was doing that, quite frankly, I wanted to take about 6 months to myself. I was that exhausted and burned out. I got contacted by a recruiter for a technical program manager position at Google. And I didn't think anything would come of it, but I gave them the go ahead, and that's how I ended up here in the team that I am now as technical program manager. But it seems like a seamless story, but it wasn't. It was so hard. It was a lot of rejections, a lot of doing a lot of things that I didn't want to do because I was exhausted and talking to a lot of people and try to be more social. But I think the main point here is to keep grinding and keep believing in yourself. The leadership that I had in the Army, unfortunately, aside from the resources that I was lacking to transition and the knowledge that I thought I didn't gain that I should have, they killed my self-worth professionally. I walked out of there not really thinking, like they were saying, what are you going to do as a civilian? Like, you'll have nothing to offer. So it took years, quite frankly, to gain that confidence and know that I had a lot to offer a company, and that I had enough to at least try to reach out to other female veterans and be part of any program that I could to help them realize that they are available. There are options for her. And if you work hard enough and you're patient, you can find these opportunities.
Right. Wow. I mean, that's amazing, because what I hear from that is you were working your tail off, not only in your education, but networking, getting to know people,
networking,
and just like, hey, I'm over here. And what I also hear is that your military time, like nobody cared about that on your resume. Like, oh, cool, you were in the military. What do you know? What education do you have? Who do you know? What can you do for us? So I do think that a lot of veterans hang on to that, to where they're like, well, I'm a veteran, so that gets me ahead. And the thing is like, it's almost like time stays still for us while the rest of the world goes on. And if we don't do like what you were doing with getting your education going, like you're going to be way behind. And I mean, that happened to me for sure. Lynn, I know you said that you had a hard time too, like getting a job initially.
Oh, yeah. Mine kind of mirrors Karina, almost not identical, but I wanted to share a couple of the on military.com. They have 7 suggestions on how to transition. And so we've talked about a couple of them. One is attend the TAPS if you're allowed, if they don't like stop you from going. The second is to think about transferable skills. So yeah, you're a veteran. Okay, that gets you through the door for an interview. Now what? How are you going to sell yourself? How are you going to talk about your military skills? So yes, okay, we're veterans, whoop-dee-doo, like a lot of other people are veterans too, but how do you set yourself apart for you to be able to, be that candidate that recruiters want to hire? Another one is find military friendly employers. So like Karina said, she networked her butt off to look for people who were in like the same kind of areas like veterans or LGBTQ or Spanish speaking. So you get, with those people who are military friendly employers to help you transition through those jobs. And I know you said you worked with some internships with veterans to be able to get into those big corporate businesses. Another one is adjust your military lingo to corporate speak. So that is very hard for us military people when how we talk. We trash talk all day, and that's normal for us. People think we're angry. We're not. That's how we talk. But you have to learn how to speak a lot differently and a little bit more friendlier. So that is definitely a big transition. The fifth one, it says connect with recruiters and headhunters. who focus on military to civilian transitions. 6, play up your strengths as an ex-military candidate, like we previously talked about. And number 7, what Karina harped on, network, network, network. Applying for jobs, especially in the career field that you want. What worked for Karina, what I heard from her story, is that she put herself out there. She wasn't afraid to be like, even though you might not be a social person, but when it comes professionally, you put on that professional face and you go out there and you meet people and you put yourself out there so that people know who you are and what kind of skills that you have that make you desirable candidate. So for me, I went to school. I got my bachelor's of science in accounting because I thought I wanted to be an accountant, and I hate accounting. I hate that so much, and it was terrible. And I just did it just to push through. I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I already using my GI Bill. I'm not going to waste it and start all over again. I'm just going to do this. So I did that for a little bit. And then I did accounting, and now my head hurts talking about it. And then so I wanted that security blanket and that comfort of a government federal job. So I just kept applying USA jobs. I was lucky enough to be able to take some classes on base after transitioning because I became a military spouse. So I had the Fleet Family Support Services on base. They gave free classes, so I was able to take the federal resume training and all that extra training. So I did about 3 different resume training classes, and I also did a lot of research to do to translate my military service to civilian side. And I did put in about 250 applications on USA jobs before I even heard from one to even get an interview. So, because these days, veterans are using their TA before they get out because I used my TA to get my associate's degree. You know, so they're getting their bachelor's before they get out. They have their master's already. So what are you doing to make yourself marketable? Okay, you're a veteran. Okay, you served in the Gulf War. So did all of us. You know, okay, you're disabled. So is all of us. What else? You know, what else? So I went and I eventually got my master's degree. And now I'm with Department of Homeland Security, you know, which is great. It's a cool federal cush job. But yeah, it took a long time to get there. And even then, it's still not like where I actually want to be, but I'm still working towards that. So.
Yeah. Wow. So ladies, tell me like something that you wish you'd known when you were transitioning that you know now that relates to your career path or the career path that you like really want. Like something that you wish you'd known.
That's a hard question. I wrote that question and I don't even know.
Well, I'll start it. I'll actually start it. So, and you know, I heard Karina say I don't remember exactly what your words were, but this, like I was already thinking this and then you said this, but it really is, I wish that I had started on personal development when I was still in the military. Mm-hmm. So education I think is a must to get into a lot of jobs. Like for me, I don't need an education. Hey, I can be done. But what has taken me so long to find my success and find the things that I'm truly passionate about is working on me, because I was such an angry, bitter person. And I was a different person in the Army because I was very much like, hey, go by the regulation. What are you doing? Don't look at me that way. Yeah. And like, I didn't like that, but I felt like I had to be that version of me that was like, people that got to know me knew that I would like give you the shirt off my back and I was kind, but people that didn't know me were like, you know, because I was just really mad. I was very mad. And that holding all of that, and this can relate to PTSD. It can relate to like any traumatic experiences you've been in the military or even in your childhood, because I feel like the majority of us in the military had some sort of childhood trauma, but hanging on to all that and not getting help, or educating yourself and developing yourself personally, surrounding yourself with more positive people, supportive people, successful people, and telling you like, hey, you need to think like this. You need to replace that thought with this thought. Because, people in the military, a lot of them don't want you to succeed. They don't want you to pass them up, and they don't want you to leave. So they're not going to be as supportive as somebody else that whose your success has nothing to do with theirs, right? But that's really the one thing that I wish I had known, because I didn't start that until after I got out. And it's been a long journey of really finding that happiness and confidence and true success for myself. So that's where I would start.
That's a really good one, because I feel like most of us were angry when we got out, or just had that mentality, because anger is like your baseline when it comes to military. That's how you get things done. Like, get this done now, so it's so hard to just transition from that mentality to just being a normal, like, chill person.
You can't knife hand anymore.
Right. Yeah. So I remember I was trying to look for my first job interview. I was like, the guy goes, well, so if somebody has a problem and they're doing something wrong, what are you going to do and say to them? I said, well, I'm going to tell them, this is what it says in the guidelines. Come here and see. This is why you're wrong. And this is why you have to listen to me. And so the guy was like, yeah, we're not hiring you. So what I wish I known was how to navigate the VA process much easier as it comes to education and the stuff they had for transitioning. I had no idea that there was transitioning education or training available after the military to veterans, so that they call it VRNE now. It used to be called Voc Rehab. They don't call that no more, but they help veterans transition or try to do job placement with them. And I had no idea that even existed.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish that I would have taken advantage of that a little bit more, because all I did was GI Bill, which is great, and I didn't waste it, which is awesome. But I could have used a little bit more of that support.
100%. Karina, what about you?
Wow, these are very hard ones to follow up because what I had
There's
in
no
mind,
right or wrong answer.
right? What I had in mind is very similar. I think there's so many resources, especially now. There are even companies that let you intern while you're transitioning and you're still in the military. So you
Really?
have
Wow.
6 months to go through that process with them, part-time, weekend, however it works for you.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Depending
what,
on your industry. Yeah.
what are these companies and how do people find them?
A lot of big companies like Barclays, Chase Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, even technology companies like IBM. You can just Google internships for veterans or any way you'd like to put it. Sorry, I don't have specific ones in mind, but I remember looking back and thinking, I could have been interning this entire time in what I wanted to do. That's insane. They have a lot of them that are under other names than internship. I think it's apprenticeships.
Apprenticeship.
And for those of us that were in Texas and the companies in New York City, you can do them remotely as well. So there's a lot of opportunities. It's just a matter of working backwards from at least 6 months. So a year out before you transition out, what do I want to do? It's a very personal question. And how am I going to work towards that? Yeah, you always want to be the best, service member you can be and fulfill your duties, but that's essentially in the past now. How can you move forward? And how can you position yourself in a way that, again, your military service is great to have, but there's a whole bunch of other reasons why it's valuable for them to have you. You have companies like American Corporate Partners, which are the ones where I got my mentor from Johnson & Johnson while I was going through grad school. So the resources are there. Just make sure that you have to own your transition. Nobody owes it to you, not the VA, not wherever you're stationed, not your sergeants. It's on you to make that happen. And your future you, your family, those that depend on you financially as well. It will make a big difference for everyone. So own your transitioning process, look for resources. It's your journey and you should be driving it.
Ooh, I love that.
Awesome.
Yes, I think we got a tagline, girls.
All right. So Karina, I was going to segue and ask you about your suggestions for resources, but you already named a couple off of couple of them off. Do you have any other specific resources that veterans or veterans who are getting ready to transition out of the military to go to for their career and job hunting and things like that?
Yeah, so these big companies, I say big, quite frankly, that those are the only type of companies that I have experience in. They always have a veteran compartment in them. So you can Google them, look for them, reach out to them. If you don't feel comfortable with that, a more personalized approach, look for someone in your field that's also a veteran on LinkedIn and reach out to them. Even if you get one person out of 15 that you reached out to, that's one person that will make a difference for you.
Right.
And as you're speaking to them, ask them of anyone they think you should be reaching out to. There are things like transition and service member cheat sheets out there, a sheetography. I don't know if I can provide the links, and it can be posted somewhere on the webpage, where it's just, oh my goodness, it's a glossary of so many links and resources to get this type of help and this type of programs going. So yeah, it's very company specific. Start with the company and go from there, or the field, not even the company that you want to be in, and see what veterans resources they have. I don't want to harp on Google, but they have a great program for not one, multiple programs for veterans, and there are people that you can reach out to way before you transition. That's the best time to start. Yeah.
Man, Karina, you are like a wealth of knowledge that I feel like we have just barely tapped into. This has been amazing. Like, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for all of this information.
Wow. So, any lessons learned, final words of advice you ladies want to share? I think we talked a lot. We talked about a whole lot. We covered a lot. But any final words?
Any final words of advice? Specifically for female veterans, find your voice. It took me years to find my voice outside of the military, because you're taught in a way to keep quiet unless you need to speak up. And the impact that it has professionally for you to speak up frequently in meetings, to put your ideas and questions out there, it's insane how much you can grow and how much others can see the value that you're bringing. So it's something that might take a while. It certainly took it for me, but definitely work on finding your voice.
Well, I'm so proud of you and happy for you that you did find your voice. And I appreciate you sharing your voice with us tonight. This has been so beneficial, and I know it's going to help a lot of veterans out there. So anybody that is listening or watching this, make sure that you're sharing this, because if you're a veteran or you know a veteran, then they also know veterans. And the more we can get this out, the more we can share it with everybody. Make sure that you're connecting with us on Veteran Trash Talk in our Facebook group, on YouTube, wherever you can find us. We're everywhere, and Facebook keeps trying to shut us down, but they're not going to win. I'm not going to win. So
No.
Remember, ladies, you are 10% of the 10%. Don't let anyone tell you, because you are a woman, that your service wasn't as hard or as important. We are your voice, and you will be heard. But like Karina said, find your own voice too. It's also important. Thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you all for listening and joining us. And we'll see you next time on Throat Punch Monday.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.